Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Hoot. When we left off, Roy was released by the boy who calls himself Mullet Fingers, and Officer Delinko is busy getting yelled at for having his squad car spray painted. And they've said now that he had the flu and was on medicine, and that's what happened. So, David, the sergeant, cut in. If the chief says you were taking flu medicine, you were definitely taking flu medicine. And if the chief says that's why you fell asleep in the patrol car, then that's exactly what happened. Do you understand? Yes, sir. The captain held up a yellow slip of paper. This is a bill from the Ford dealership for $410. They got that black paint off your windows. That's the good news. Took them all day, but they did it. Officer Delinko was sure that the captain was going to hand him the repair bill, but he didn't. Instead, he placed it inside the patrolman's personal file, which lay open on his desk. Officer, I don't know what to do with you. I just don't. The captain's tone was one of paternal disappointment. I'm very sorry. It won't happen again, sir. Officer Delinko's sergeant said, Captain, I ought to tell you that David volunteered for the surveillance duty at the construction site, and he went there early in the morning on his own off-duty time. His own time? The captain folded his arms. Well, that's commendable. David, can I ask you why you did that? Because I want to catch the perpetrators, Officer Delinko replied. I knew it was a priority with you and the chief. That's the only reason? You didn't have some sort of personal stake in this case? I do now, thought Officer Delinko, now that they made a fool out of me. No, sir, he said. The captain turned his attention towards the sergeant. Well, there's got to be some kind of punishment, whether we like it or not. The chief's taking too much grief over this. I agree, the sergeant said. Officer Delinko's heart sank. Any disciplinary action would automatically become part of his permanent record, and it might be an issue when it came time to apply for a promotion. Sir, I'll pay for that bill myself, Officer Delinko offered. $410 was a serious chunk of his paycheck, but keeping his record spotless was worth every penny. The captain said it wasn't necessary for Officer Delinko to cover the bill, and that wouldn't satisfy the chief anyway. So I'm putting you on desk duty, he said, for a month. David can live with that, said the sergeant. But what about the Mother Paula's surveillance? Officer Delinko asked. Don't worry, we'll get it covered, and we'll pull somebody off the midnight shift. Yes, sir. Officer Delinko was depressed at the idea of being stuck behind a desk doing nothing for a whole boring month. Still, it was better than being suspended. The only thing worse than sitting at headquarters would be sitting at home. The captain stood up, which meant the meeting was over. He said, David, if anything like this happens again, it won't, I promise. Next time, you're definitely going to see your name in the newspaper. Yes, sir. Under a headline that says Officer Terminated. Is that clear? Officer Delinko cringed inwardly. I understand, sir, he said quietly to the captain. He wondered if the little jerks who sprayed his Crown Victoria realized how much trouble they were getting him into. My whole career is in jeopardy, Officer Delinko thought angrily, all because some smart juvenile delinquents. He was more determined than ever to catch them in the act. In the hallway outside the captain's office, the sergeant told him, You can pick up your car at the motor pool. But remember, David, you're off road patrol. This means you're allowed to drive the unit home and back, but that's all. Right, said Officer Delinko, home and back. He had already thought of a route that would take him directly past the corner of East Oriole and Woodbury, the future home of Mother Paula's All-American Pancake House. Nobody said he couldn't leave his house extra early in the morning, and no one could say that he couldn't take his sweet time getting to work. Dana Matherson was absent from school again. Roy felt somewhat relieved, though not enough to relax. The longer Dana had to stay away so his nose could recover from Roy's punch, the nastier he would be when he finally returned to Trace Middle. You've still got time to blow town, Garrett suggested helpfully. I'm not running away. Whatever happens, just happens. Roy wasn't trying to act cool. He'd thought a lot about the Dana situation. Another confrontation seemed inevitable, and part of him simply just wanted to get it over with. He wasn't cocky, but he had a stubborn streak of pride. He had no intention of spending the rest of the year cowering in the restroom or sneaking through the halls just to avoid some dumb bully. I probably shouldn't tell you this, said Garrett, but some of the kids are taking bets. Great. They're betting on whether Dana's going to beat me up? No. How many times he's going to beat you up? That's nice, Roy said. Actually, two good things had come out of the altercation with Dana Matherson. The first was Roy successfully tailing the barefoot boy to the golf course. The second was Roy being booted off the bus for 2 weeks by the vice principal. It was nice having his mother pick him up at school. They got to chat in the car, and Roy arrived home 20 minutes earlier than usual. The phone was ringing when they walked in the door. It was his mother's sister calling from California to chat. Roy seized the opportunity to retrieve a cardboard shoebox from his room and slipped quietly out the back door of the house. He was heading for the golf course again, with a slight detour. Instead of making a left on West Oriole toward the bus stop, Roy rode his bicycle across the highway to East Oriole. He had gone less than 2 blocks when he came upon a scrubbed covered lot with a dented work trailer in one corner. Parked beside the trailer was a blue pickup truck. Not far away sat 3 bulldozer-type vehicles and a row of portable toilets. Roy figured this had to be the exact place where the police car got spray painted and the alligators were hidden inside those latrines. As soon as Roy stopped his bicycle, the door of the trailer flew open and a stocky bald man charged out. He wore stiff tan work pants and a tan shirt that had a name stitched to the breast, but Roy was too far away to read it. "What do you want?" The man snapped, his face flushed with anger. "Hey, kid, I'm talking to you." Roy thought, what's his problem? The man came forward, pointing. "What's in the box?" he yelled. "What have you and your little buddies got planned for tonight, huh?" Roy spun his bike around and started pedaling away. The guy was acting like a total psycho. "That's right, and don't you come back," the bald man hollered, shaking a fist. "Next time there'll be guard dogs waiting for you. The meanest dogs you ever saw." Roy pedaled faster. He didn't turn around. The clouds were darkening, and he thought he felt a raindrop on one cheek. From the distance came a rumble of thunder. Even after crossing the highway to West Oriole, Roy didn't slow his pace. By the time he made it to the golf course, a steady drizzle was coming down. He hopped off his bicycle and shielded the shoebox with both arms, beginning to jog across the deserted greens and fairways. Soon as he reached the thicket of pepper trees where he had encountered the boy called Mullet Fingers, Roy mentally prepared himself to be blindfolded and tied up again. He even composed a short speech for the occasion. He was determined to persuade Mullet Fingers that he was someone that could be trusted, that he hadn't come to interfere but to help if Mullet Fingers needed it. While working his way through the thicket, Roy grabbed a dead branch off the ground. It was heavy enough to make an impression on a cottonmouth moccasin, though he hoped that wouldn't be necessary. When he got to the ditch, he saw no sign of the deadly sparkle-tailed snakes. The running boys' camp was gone, cleaned out. All the plastic bags had been removed, and the fire pit had been buried. Roy poked the tip of the branch through the loose dirt, but it yielded no clues, and glumly he checked for footprints and couldn't find one. Mullet Fingers had fled without a trace. As Roy emerged from the fairway, the purple sky opened up. Rain slashed down in wind-driven sheets that stung his face, and lightning crashed ominously nearby. Roy shivered and took off running. In an electrical storm, the worst place to be was on a golf course standing near trees. As he ran, flinching at every thunderclap, he began to feel guilty about sneaking away from the house. His mother would be worried sick when she realized he was out in this weather. She might even get in the car and come searching for him, a prospect that troubled Roy. He didn't want his mom driving around in such dangerous conditions. The rain was so heavy she wouldn't be able to see the road very well. As wet and as weary as he was, Roy forced himself to run faster, squinting through the downpour. He kept thinking it can't be much farther. He was looking for the water fountain where he left his bicycle. Finally, as another wild burst of lightning illuminated on the fairway, he spotted it 20 yards ahead of him, but the bicycle wasn't there. At first, Roy thought it was the wrong fountain. He must have left it and maybe got lost in the direction of the storm. And then he recognized the nearby utility shed and a wooden kiosk with a soda machine. Oh, this was the place, all right. Roy stood in the rain and stared miserably at the spot where he left his bike. Usually he was careful about locking it up, but today he had been in too much of a hurry, and now it was missing. Stolen, undoubtedly. To get away from the rain, Roy dashed into the wooden kiosk. The soggy cardboard box was coming apart in his hand. This would be a very long walk home, and Roy knew he couldn't get there before nightfall. His parents were going to go bananas. For 10 minutes, Roy stood in the kiosk, dripping on the floor, waiting for the downpour to slacken. The lightning and thunder seemed to be rolling eastward, but the rain just wouldn't quit. Finally, Roy stepped outside, lowered his head, and began walking in the direction of his neighborhood. Every step made a splash. Raindrops streaked down his forehead and clung to his eyelashes. He really wished he wore a cap. When he got to the sidewalk, he tried to run, but it was like sloshing through a lake. Roy noticed this about Florida. It was low and flat, and the puddles took forever to drain. Just as he made it to the corner of West Oriole and the highway, the streetlights flickered on. Oh, brother, he thought, I am so late. Traffic was steady in both directions, creeping through water. Roy waited impatiently. Every car pushed a wake that splashed against his shin. He was already soaked to the bone. Spying a gap in the traffic, Roy ventured into the road. "Watch it!" shouted a voice behind him. Roy jumped back on the curb and spun around, and there was Beatrice Leap, sitting on his bicycle. He said, "What's in the shoebox, cowgirl?" And she stopped there, and we will stop there.